We're going to the topic of the week or so. We never know how long exactly, but is about calling it creative meditation. And when we chose the name reflective meditation, which we chose several years back, we really just as easily could have named it creative meditation or contemplative meditation, or well, we could go on from there. But today we're going to talk about the creative angle on what we do together.
Right. And that creative um, support is not just for practice or a process of meditation. We hope that it transfers into your life, that it's actually you practice a kind of creativity within the meditation practice that has some, juice to it. It can come out and not just be in art or in your hobbies, but really in creative solutions to your life, creative thinking, ideas that you could put into action.
Right. And of course, because we're so oriented towards the teaching on conditionality, creative choices or directions that are hopefully in sync with the conditions in your life, which really makes them much more possible and much more enjoyable.
It does, because we're really looking at the process of creativity, which has a lot of emotions to it. It's enjoyable, but also that things that we create or plan or put together, they also fall apart. Creativity destructs at inopportune times. Um, and knowing that is part of the Dharma teaching, and it's applicable. And actually, we can see it more as it happens in this kind of process when we're more aware of conditionality.
Right. And we'd like to forget that it's going to fall apart. But that is the way it goes. Not necessarily now or tomorrow, but we lose everything we love eventually, and Buddhism teaches us. But from our point of view, well, I think from many Buddhist teachers' point of view, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't love it or create it.
Right. Right. And I think, Nellie, what we're trying to get at today is to just start at some of the underlying views that come with these teachings on impermanence and teachings on dukkha and teachings on not self, the three marks of existence, in line with creativity, that there's this, let's say, teaching that we shouldn't get too attached to what we create, or we shouldn't desire more in a creative process. And that view, when it's not questioned, when you just kind of go to, well, desire is the root of all suffering, so therefore I shouldn't create, therefore I shouldn't um, have desire, and I shouldn't be too attached to pleasure. We're really trying to question any extreme teaching or extreme views within the teachings that we may not even know we hold or hold still.
Right. And that was when I came into Buddhism, whatever, 40 some odd years ago. I felt like that was deeply conditioned, or that's how I took it up. I'm not sure. But that the way to spiritual development would be to eliminate desire and desires. And I just don't see it that way anymore. What I see it now is through reflection as we do it, we see yeah, we want things, we get them sometimes, they fall apart. And we just know that deeply, as they say, in our bones, that this is the way things are, which doesn't mean we shouldn't create them. It
Mhm.
just means we have some wisdom about what will follow.
Well, and I also want to speak to the moments where we lose that wisdom. We forget. We forget that those marks of existence are something that we know from many other experiences. And I think they can accompany us and leave us for a moment and come back. That it's really, in my experience, there's moments where, like for example, I'm up in San Luis Obispo here at Crow's and Mary's Renard's Retreat Center. We were going to go walk on the beach yesterday, and so were millions of other people with their ATVs and their cars, which they let on the beach. So it was like walking on the 405 on one side and the ocean on another. I really, it distracted. um, and I forgot the teachings for a moment, for a little while, or I would remember them and come back and forget them and come back to them. It was a real process to still stay present to something that was so, I was so averse to.
Right. And so I think what you're saying, Linda, if I'm following you accurately, is that this was a real desire, this was a real plan, this was something you were really hoping for, and you didn't get it. It turned into something very different, and there's grief there
Right,
too, right?
right.
And I'm a strong proponent of allowing oneself to grieve.
Yeah. Yeah. Isn't it funny? At first I thought I was just angry, and then I saw I was sad and disappointed. All of these things. Again, here we're back at conditionality, and it really changed it for me because there was so much more to the experience when I could get there.
Yeah, and I'll talk about a little experience I had last week. It didn't feel little at the time, it feels little now. But I made this, rather in pottery and clay, I made this sort of large pot that I actually needed. I needed a larger mixing bowl set, our previous one had broken that had been around for decades. Um, it broke completely. So I needed to make a new one. And I worked on it very much and I thought it and I planned it and I did all this stuff. And then when I was very tired, I picked it up incorrectly. It was at a very fragile stage and it broke.
Mm,
And I don't know if this is true, Linda, but I want to believe this. But it seems like as I practice more, I don't grieve less, but I grieve more intensely and quicker. Like I was so heartbroken about this situation. I was just so sad. And then it passed by really
mm.
allowing myself to be that heartbroken.
Mm.
And it's just a pot, but I was heartbroken.
Yeah, Nellie, that's good that you could see into that, like, that it went quicker, it was still as intense, because often that intensity would signal something's wrong with us, or why are we still feeling this so immensely? But that possibly, and maybe others would concur, I will, that it seems to go a little quicker, that it seems to pass in with less time, or less, I don't know, even less dings on me, less kind of impact on my body.
Well, I felt pretty dinged, I have to say. I was really sad. I
But
was
did it
sad.
continue?
No,
Did
no,
That's what,
it was
yeah.
pretty short-lived, that
Yeah.
kind of, you
Yeah.
know, feeling. And then it was just like, oh, too bad. That's
Yeah.
I'll and I said to my friend who I do pottery with, she said, I think you can I save this? She said, I think you can save it, but it's going to be a lot of work. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, it sounds like there's some acceptance there too, Nellie, of what happened, and, what you might have to do to bring it back.
Right. But of course, it's a small thing in terms
Mhm.
of acceptance. Yeah.
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 Yeah. Well,
But
we
the creative process is really looking at conditionality, and that's something we will keep we'll keep talking about that forevermore. But really, the reason my pot broke was the conditions were not right to lift it that way. That's what it was. And I was not attuned to the conditions at that time. So,
Well, sometimes I know you just alluded, we say this a lot, we talk about conditionality a lot, but sometimes it is quite radical to go in that direction of looking at the conditions when something is so heartbreaking. And it's hard to do. And, it's a kind of a radical creativity, conditionality is. Yeah. Are we ending there? No, we have something else to say. I can't see the time, Nellie.
it is, well, it is the time. It's
Oh,
10 minutes after the hour. Yeah, why don't we end there and we'll continue. You'll continue this tomorrow, right?
yes, I'll continue it tomorrow, but we wanted to leave you with a bit of a prompt
Ah,
and ask, um, does knowing that things fall apart, the cup will break, our book won't sell. That was one example. We were going to talk about a creative process with writing our book, or that the vacation that I really wanted won't happen, or the pot that Nelly created will break. Does knowing that make it more precious?
Because that's a famous Ajahn Chah quote that we used to have a magnet on the refrigerator at Pine Street Sangha. Many people have heard it, and I don't think I'm going to get it quite accurately in this moment, but knowing that this cup is already broken makes it more precious. So the question is that is that true for you?
Yeah.
How is that true for you?